Donald Trump may have made a fatal mistake in Pennsylvania by having Tony Hinchcliffe at Madison Square Garden say that Puerto Rico is a floating pile of garbage in the ocean. Why do I say this? Well, we're starting to do the math and learning about the disastrous fallout among Latino voters and specifically Puerto Rican voters in the United States. Let's back up a little bit. One of the states that is most likely to be the sole decider of this election, if the election were to come down to just one state, is the state of Pennsylvania. It just so happens that Pennsylvania also has one of the largest Puerto Rican populations, especially among the states that could decide the election. So let's talk it through, looking at this map from Newsweek. Florida has 1.2 million Puerto Rican people living within it. But most likely, Florida is gone to Trump. Now, we never give up on any state and we fight for everything, but we're being realistic here. And it does seem as though Florida has in presidential elections recently taken a decidedly red turn. More than likely, Kamala Harris's win is not going to depend on winning Florida. Similarly, in New York, there are nearly 1.1 million Puerto Ricans. And similarly, Trump is not going to win New York. Trump is lying and saying we might win New York and New Jersey, but he is not going to. The election will not depend on New York. The election will not depend on New Jersey, which has nearly 500,000 Puerto Ricans. Kamala Harris is going to win that. Massachusetts has 330,000 Puerto Ricans. Massachusetts is going to go to Harris. So then you get to this state of Pennsylvania. Nearly 4% of the Pennsylvanian population is Puerto Rican. That's nearly 500,000 people. And what we are now starting to see, as Politico reports, is that Trump's Puerto Rico fallout is, quote, spreading like wildfire in Pennsylvania. And this article outlines and argues that Donald Trump, quote, has a serious Puerto Rico problem in Pennsylvania. Now, the first question we would ask in such a scenario would be, okay, Tony Hinchcliffe said that thing, but do Puerto Ricans care? Is it affecting Trump? Is anyone attaching it to Trump? The answer is yes. Widespread condemnation from within the Puerto Rican community. Very few Puerto Ricans writing this off as just a silly joke, and I'm still voting for Scrumps. No, that's not happening. It seems as though, rightly so, this was seen particularly in the context of Trump seemingly not caring about Puerto Rico, kind of making fun of the entire recovery effort by showing up after a hurricane and shooting paper towels like basketball free throws into a crowd, talking about withholding aid, drawing on hurricane maps. He's just never seemed super concerned about Puerto Rico. At one point, reportedly, not even realizing that it's part of the United States, thinking that he was going to talk to the president of Puerto Rico, which, by the way, was him at the time. So in the context of Trump being indifferent or even negligent towards Puerto Rico, combined with the comments from Tony Hinchcliffe, Puerto Rican voters are not happy. We then get to the numbers. If you go back to the 2020 presidential election, you see that in Pennsylvania, the margin of victory for Joe Biden was only 81,000 votes. If you believe the story that Donald Trump has been making inroads with Latino voters, and by the way, when I say if you believe it, I believe it. The polling I've seen does not show Trump making inroads with black voters, but it does show Trump as of 3 days ago, right? We'll see how the numbers change. The polling does show Trump nationally doing better among Latino voters than he did in 2020. So if you believe that, and you see that there's nearly 500,000 Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania, and you see that Trump only lost it by 80,000 votes in 2020, you could certainly imagine a world in which, heroically riding on the backs of Latino voters, Donald Trump surges to victory in Pennsylvania and subsequently wins the election because of Pennsylvania, which that's all a plausible scenario. On the other hand, thanks to Joe Rogan's brilliant idea some time ago that Tony Hinchcliffe should go around with Trump writing one-liners and delivering one-liners. And you see that Tony Hinchcliffe did that, and it has disgusted Puerto Rican voters. And there's 500,000 of them in Pennsylvania. It could be that Donald Trump will lose Pennsylvania and thus lose the election thanks to the Tony Hinchcliffe Puerto Rico disaster at Madison Square Garden Sunday evening. That's the math of it. We'll follow it, and ultimately we will know the answer. Many of us loved eating breakfast cereals as kids, but now that we're adults, you don't want all the sugar and the carbs, which is why I love our sponsor, Magic Spoon, the nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like your favorite sugary cereals from childhood, but without the sugar and packed with protein. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, but there are many more. And if you're already a fan of Magic Spoon, I have big news. Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high-protein treats that are light, crispy, and crunchy, and taste just like the classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon treats have become a favorite go-to snack because it's an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/Pacman, or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. The link is in the description.